السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نرجع بكم بمقطع جديد وحلقة مرة جديدة من جيمر ستريك يا شباب. اليوم مقطع مرة جديد وحلقة جديدة من الشخص المميز في كرة القدم، وهو بول بوجبا يا شباب. هذا بول بوجبا اللي الفرنسي المسلم. واذا تريدوا تشوفوا الفيديو الحلو انه هو مسلم ولاعب اسطورة في كرة القدم، وهو الان في اليوفي، لكن هو بول بوجبا المعروف ببول بوجبا. هو لاعب كرة قدم فرنسي يلعب في مركز الوسط في نادي اليوفي والمنتخب الفرنسي، ويلعب بشكل أساسي كلاعب خط وسط، ولكن يمكن اللعب أيضا كلاعب خط وسط مهاجم ولاعب خط وسط دفاعي وصانع الألعاب. ولكن تاريخ المكان والميلاد 15 مارس 1993، عمره 31، لانجيسر مارمي في فرنسا مكانه اللي تولد، وفريق الحالي يوفي رقمه 10. تواريخ الانضمام 2022 في اليوفي، وقبله من 2016 مانشستر يونايتد، والمزيد إذا تبغوا. والأشقاء مانيات بوجبا، فيليرتون بوجبا، والأبناء كيان زيها بوجبا، ليبا شاكور بوجبا، والطول 191 سعيد. والوالدان يو بوجبا فوسو انطيان بوجبا. وإذا تريد تشوفوا الحين الفيديو اللي عنه، بس دقيقة بنشوف مع بعض.
Forgot the passcode to enter your locked iPhone? How can you unlock your iPhone without knowing the passcode?
I'm over, I'm dead. Pogba doesn't exist anymore.
Paul Pogba was sarcastic when he uttered these words in an interview. This was, according to the Frenchman, what people thought whenever something minor went wrong in his career. Fast forward to today, and now that he actually is in a world of trouble, what he has said in the past perfectly describes the reality of his current situation. But who would have thought that Paul Pogba, once the most expensive player in the world and a World Cup winning superstar, would turn into the ultimate wasted talent? Paul Pogba knew better than anyone else that his whole career was on a knife's edge when he was randomly selected for a doping test on August the 20th, 2023. The verdict has fallen, and a return to football for Pogba looks incredibly unlikely, which begs the question: was Pogba's reaction to a random doping test back when he was in Manchester a foretelling of his fate?
Again.
Paul Labille Pogba was born on March the 15th, 1993 in Rosy-en-Brie, a suburb of Paris. His parents, Fassou Antoine and Yio, were Guinean, and they used to live in Conakry before Paul was born. Stricken with poverty, the Pogbas would ultimately join millions of other African families who moved into Europe in the early 1990s. It was Fassou Antoine who first arrived in France, and a few months later, Yio joined him. Paul's parents had a single ambition: a better life. Not necessarily for themselves, but for their children at least. Paul was their third child, after his older twin brothers Florentin and Matthias. two influential figures who would soon inspire Paul and push him further down the abyss in the case of Matthias. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Already not on the best of terms before their reunion in France, Fassou Antoine and Yeo's relationship worsened over time and broke off completely when Paul was only 2 years old. Whichever way you looked at it, Paul was destined to experience a tough childhood. Luckily for Paul and his brothers, their mother was as tough as nails. Growing up on the Renardier housing estate in Rosy-en-Brie, pretty much everything could go wrong for the brothers, as they were literally surrounded by violent gang activities and bad influences from the neighborhood. Yeo feared for her children. She had taken so much risk just to reach France and had left everything behind, including her own past, just to give them a better chance of making it in life. The ever-burning question she had on her mind was this: how was she going to keep her children away from all that trouble? The question was complicated, but the answer was simple: football. Football was the only solution to keeping the boys on the right track. Even though Florentine, Matthias and Paul didn't necessarily feel that way in the beginning, Yeo knew that the beautiful game could be their golden ticket. Fassou and Yeo were separated, but Yeo wanted the father of her children to know anything that concerned their kids' future. Pleasantly surprised by the mother's decision to help their kids pursue a career in football, something clicked in Fassou's mind, and he instantly became more attached to the family. And the reason behind his mental switch was his very own background. Fassou had to abandon his dreams of becoming a football player himself. So as soon as he heard about the kids trying their luck at the game, he too became supportive, just like Yeo, if not more. Thus started the footballing journey of the Pogba brothers. And in a very short time, everyone knew who out of the three would really make it. Paul was already exposed to the game thanks to his brothers, but it was playing with kids his age that made him fall in love with the game. As early as 6 years old, to give him a better chance at success in football, Yeo decided to homeschool Paul. Football had officially become his life. His first ever football team was US Rosy-en-Brie, and his coach, Sambou Tati, would recall how he would basically toy with his opponents.
Dans son enfance, c'était un enfant funny, qui aimait travailler. Et une fois, on va en tournoi à Saint-Raphaël, il était en poussin. Il prenait la balle, il marquait. Et les parents à côté, ils disent non, dis-lui, ça doit être un Benjamin, ils ont triché. On leur dit non, c'est un poussin. Tellement que pour lui, c'était facile.
When he was 13, everyone knew that it was time for Paul to go up a level. And so he did that, and then some. In as short as 2 years, Paul's talents would take him from US Torcy to Le Havre and then to an out-and-out European giant. In his second season with Le Havre, Pogba was already the captain of his team, and he had led them all the way to the end of the Under-16 National Championship, only to barely lose the title to Lens. It didn't really matter though, because that season made Pogba a national phenomenon. He had his first French international team call-up via the Under-16 French national team. The national team was going to be the very place which will somehow become the safe zone for Pogba, sheltering him for most of his future troubles. Anyways, even though he was popping up on every European club's radar, the president of Le Havre, Jean-Pierre Level, was not bothered, because the club, Pogba, and his family had a non-solicitation agreement in place since 2006, and it would keep Pogba at the club for 2 more years. At least, that was what Level hoped for. So when Pogba announced that he'd be joining Manchester United's academy in 2009, Level was sad, but he wasn't exactly surprised, because for him, the reason why things had turned out the way they did was clear. Unfortunately, he left because I think that the whole family, the whole entourage, was not trying to keep him. They were there mainly to benefit from the money. Everyone sought to benefit from this career before thinking about Paul's future. This was one of the earliest signs of Paul Pogba and his not so conventional way of doing business. Of course, he was still a minor, and the main motivators behind his moves were people in his entourage rather than his own desires. Following Pogba's move to United from Le Havre, and the Red Devils found themselves in a legal battle. The French club accused United of stealing their talent by offering very high sums of money to the parents of the player. In the end, United were cleared of any wrongdoing by a judge appointed by FIFA, which finally officialized Pogba's move. The transfer saga validated multiple things at the time. 1, Pogba was a talent worth fighting for, the kid was a baller, and 2, he had a hard to deal with entourage. Bear in mind, this was before he even became a client of Mino Raiola. Making it in Le Havre and making it in Manchester were two different things. His talents had brought Pogba to United, but he was going to need more than that to leave his mark there. The old Frenchman spent the majority of his first 2 years in Manchester going up and down between the under-18s and reserve team. During one of his performances with the reserves, he struck the eye of Mino Raiola, who quickly became Pogba's friend and representative. The foxy agent had also become someone Sir Alex Ferguson absolutely despised. The Scotsman was very much aware of Pogba's talent and performances, but he also had sensed that things could very well go out of hand for him. According to former Lyon and Marseille goalkeeper Pascal Ometa, who was invited to Carrington by Sir Alex himself back in 2011, the legendary manager had seen it all.
Sir Alex appelle Paul Pogba, il avait 17 ans. Il me dit, tu vois ce joueur, ça sera un joueur extraordinaire, bourré de talent. Déjà à cet âge-là, il sera au top du top. Mais par contre, c'est un rêveur. Et s'il n'y a pas quelqu'un qui est là pour lui tracer sa voie, il n'y arrivera jamais.
Despite his concerns, before the start of the
هو يعني يتكلم عن بول بوجبا، كيف هو بدأ مسيرته. طبعا هو كان أسطورة في كرة القدم، ويعني كيف صنع هذا الموسم من البداية، كيف هو بدأ. وإن شاء الله عجبكم في هذا الفيديو، لا تنسوا اللايك والشير والسبسكرايب والكومنتس، ويلا ومع السلامة.